Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thought I'd start making this video, given a current topic that's kind of going on the internet now, about people wanting to like create revisionist history about the Muslims and the Vikings. And I figured, as a Muslim myself, I thought I'd give my opinion on it. One of the things I've noticed is that people are trying to just politicize and just water down history in a way that it makes it more pleasing, to other people, to make them feel included, which I think is just ridiculous. You need to stick with history, teach the facts, and stop like just trying to politicize it so much, just to make people feel better about themselves. History is violent. It is brutal. It's not very pleasant in very many places, and it still needs to be taught so people can learn from it. And with the history of Vikings, other YouTubers have, such as the Metatron and Bjorn Andreas Bohansen, have made a few videos about it, which are all very well good, and you should go check those out. I like both of them, and they're very well educated, knowledgeable YouTubers. Give a lot of history on topics that they're very skilled in. But for me, I think it is just ridiculous, that people, want to claim that, the Muslims were Vikings. Now, later in history, yes, some probably did become Vikings, but over like 99% of the time, no, Vikings, were not, Muslims. They have interacted with some through trade, through warfare, especially along the Spanish coast and throughout the Mediterranean, but they did not, convert to Islam, at least to within the first few generations, like the Viking Age. Just like when the Muslims went into Southeast Asia and Malaysia, they interacted with the people there, and over time, people eventually embraced Islam. But at the onset, no. Same thing with the Vikings. It was maybe later when some that decided to stay behind and set up trade ports. They eventually, years later, intermarried and eventually married and had children. And they eventually, reverted to Islam. That's plausible. But overall, no. That would be just as ridiculous as saying, just because some of the members of the Emperor Byzantium's Varangian Guard were, Vikings, that meant that, well, the people of Byzantium, all worship the All-Father. It's stupid. Just because the hand does something doesn't mean the rest of the body is guilty. And even like with some of the grave goods that are found in some Viking burial sites, doesn't mean that they converted to Islam. There's things they could have gotten through trade or through war. A good example of this is in the movie The Northman, where Amleth's father, brings back a coin they had gotten, and he mentioned from someone that he had killed. And so then Amleth, wears it because it's sacred to him. It was a gift from his father. He wears it throughout the rest of the movie. And in some close-ups, if you look at it, it looks like it has the the Shahada on it. But that doesn't mean that Amleth was a Muslim. No, it would be silly to support that. Amleth was very devoted to Odin, and these are all just things that people, get, for themselves or for their wives, or just to profit off of, make money. Some people, they suggested that, well, because they found like a ring that had the word Allah on it, that it just meant that the person converted to Islam. No, it's a pretty ring. It's nice. Someone saw it, liked it, and they decided, they wanted to keep it. Whether they got it through trade or as plunder, I don't know. But it doesn't mean they converted to Islam. All this revisionist history really needs to stop. It's just a bunch of crap. It's one thing if you're creating historical fiction and you want to, create a fantasy world where, the Muslims, were Vikings. That's one thing, but you need to specify that it is fiction, fantasy, not reality. There is a difference. Fantasy and fiction can be fun, but history is something that we all need to learn from, that something that actually happened. And some things we can grow and learn from in wisdom. Other things we learn not to do again, like slavery, like oppressing other people. These are things that just other cultures have done. We don't need to be doing them again. So, in the summary, just this whole revisionist history, whether you want to claim Muslims and Vikings were one thing, stop it. I mean, it's just nonsense. I mean, plus you're also doing a disservice not only to Muslims, but also to people who were living at that time in Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and the surrounding areas. You're insulting those people and their culture. So, and even though nowadays there are people from those countries that have embraced Islam, that doesn't mean that all the ones in the past have. So, that's just my opinion. That's how I see it. You can agree or not, that's your choice. But that's all I have to say right now on this topic. Thanks for listening.